Greetings, all and sundry. Sometimes, several measures that can be taken are interconnected. Take all of them, and you succeed in your aim. But leave out one of them, and you fail in your objective. Beating the COVID-19 pandemic is like that. The United States has been failing in its response to the pandemic because it has not been recognizing the interconnections and taking all of the necessary steps. And one of the shames of it is that it really isn't so complicated to see what needed to be done and what still needs to be done. Let's think through the logic of it. Clearly, what we want to do is reduce the fatality rate to the lowest it can possibly be. We hope to zero. How do we go about this? Well, one part of the solution is to have the medical and scientific people develop a vaccine. That's certainly something that ought to be done, and we seem to be just about there. Great. But it takes time to develop a vaccine, and then it takes time to get it distributed so that everyone has access to it. You still have to do something before everyone can be vaccinated, or before a sufficiently large portion of the population can be vaccinated as to defeat the virus's spread. That means you can't just wait for the vaccine. You have to take other measures. So what do? Well, you try to reduce the fatality rate all you can in the absence of a vaccine or before there's universal access to a vaccine. One thing you do is you do massive testing and quarantining of those who test positive, along with contact tracing to figure out where the sources of outbreaks are. We know that that can do a lot of good. Another thing you do is have people wear masks and practice social distancing when in the physical presence of other people outside their own homes. It might be beneficial to take such measures in the home too, especially if one member of the family frequently goes out among other people. But it seems excessive to expect people to do that. Wearing masks and practicing social distancing will help, but you'll also want to minimize the time people spend in the physical presence of other people, especially indoors. Minimize the time spent together, and you minimize the transmission rate of the disease. Makes sense. Unfortunately, minimizing the time people spend together with other people means engaging in a partial economic shutdown, keeping people home from jobs that aren't deemed crucial for society's functioning. That means that a lot of people won't be making their ordinary income, and many might have trouble paying the rent or even affording to buy groceries. So, something else has to be done. Namely, Congress has to pass financial relief bills to ensure that people don't get evicted from their homes or starve on the streets. If that sounds excessive, note that we now have food lines because of COVID-19. Here in America, the country we like to think of as the wealthiest on the face of the planet. All of these measures should be taken, and should have been taken months ago. Unfortunately, I live in the United States, home of President Donald J. Trump, and of a Republican-controlled Senate led by Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. The president has, in fact, seen to it that the development of a vaccine has been a high priority. Yay for him! However, he hasn't seen to it that massive testing and quarantining of those who test positive has been given high priority. No yay on that. He also has disparaged such measures as the wearing of masks and the practicing of social distancing when in the physical presence of other people, especially indoors, variously making them seem unnecessary, ineffective, unmasculine, or practices in which only liberal weenies would engage. Not yay on that score. Boo, hiss instead. President Trump has also made it seem as though minimizing the time spent in the physical presence of other people, especially indoors, was not a public health measure, but a needless infringement of civil liberties. Even a liberal attack on personal freedom, as though liberals somehow hated their own freedom. Again, boo, hiss. And President Trump has not pushed for needed financial relief bills to make sure that people staying home for the sake of public health could still pay their rent and buy groceries. And Republican Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, who was able to bestir himself to action when it came to swiftly confirming Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett, has appointed himself the country's blockader of the financial relief bills that the democratically controlled House, led by Speaker Nancy Pelosi, has already passed. Boo, hiss, and truckloads of rotten tomatoes for Trump and McConnell. You see how the interconnections work, and how clear it is what needed to be done and what still needs to be done. We know what to do. We've known what we've needed to do for the greater part of a year. Our Republican leaders just aren't doing it and haven't been doing it. Remember that next time you vote, even if it's not for a few more years. Remember that. And remember that next time someone near and dear dies of COVID-19. Reason and compassion might not be Trump's or McConnell's guides, but as always, let them be yours.